And there you go. It's all yours.
Welcome everybody once again to Primetime Notaries. This is where notaries of a certain age can gather to talk about the challenges of being an older signing agent and exchange some information and maybe tips and tricks. But that doesn't mean that you can't be here if you're not over a certain age. Anybody is welcome. As a bonus, we include some general notary information as we go along as well. So today is Wednesday, May 19th, 2021, and this is a once monthly event that's completely free. But you do need to register for each session that you want to attend. So just as a reminder to you, keep your mics muted when you're not actively engaged in speaking. That just minimizes any background noise during the webinar so that everybody can hear what's going on. We're happy to see everybody join us. So if you're dressed, turn on your cameras. We do like to see those smiling faces. Hi, Alicia, I see your face. We don't care if your hair's not combed, just as long as you got clothes on, that's good. Turn your cameras on. Okay. We do have a set agenda today, but we hopefully will leave enough time to allow for you to join in and ask questions. So if you do have a question, raise your hand or pipe up, ask the question in the chat window. We'll try to get to you as we move along through the program. So one quick note, we do have a website for Primetime Notaries. It's primetimenotaries.com. There's a contact us page on that website. So if you want to email in a question for the next session, you can do that on the website or just send an email to contact@primetimenotaries.com. So stay tuned today. We do have a special guest with a giveaway, a free giveaway for you. And we're going to do that at the end of the program. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Beth Hathoot, and I've been a notary since forever, I think, and a signing agent since 2001. I did work for a local title company as a processor and a closer for a few years. And currently, I am a trainer for Notary Stars, or an instructor, whatever that proper term is, Mr. Ronnie. I'm joined by Carol Ray, Mr. Ronnie Meckel, and Miss Phyllis Traylor. And if Phyllis is here, I think I see you. If you would like to start us off, Phyllis, and just unmute and tell us a little bit about yourself so that we can introduce you to the crowd.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
There you are.
Okay, good. Okay, my name is Phyllis Traylor, and I am located in Texas, Cibolo, Texas. I'm right outside of San Antonio, and I've been a notary now for about 12 years. A little bit of background about myself in case you don't know me. I am a former soldier. I spent 20 years in the Army. I retired. I'm a former full-time professor at a local college and a visiting professor at one of the local universities. 2018, I did get selected as one of the NNA Notary of the Year Special Honorees. 2019, I was invited by the Texas Secretary of State to speak at their Notary Public conference. I am the owner of the Texas Notary Public Training Academy. I'm also the owner of the Texas Notary Patron Learning Membership Community. And I am so very happy and honored to be here this evening. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Miss Phyllis. And let's see, how about Miss Carol, our next panelist, Carol Ray.
Hello. I love your music, Ronnie. You had me exercising before we got started. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Carol Ray, and I am a retired escrow officer, escrow manager, and had my commission, my first commission, I think, in California in 1964, many, many years ago.
Wait, you cut
After
out. Did you say 1916?
no, I'm old. Oh, in 1964, I believe it was. But after I retired, I spent 14 years as a notary signing agent when it was kind of a new thing to do. 7 of which I did with my husband in Arizona. We did it together. But in 2009, I realized that a lot of really great people I knew that were trying to get started in this business, they failed because there was no training. There was no really comprehensive, detailed training to help them get started. And so I thought, well, I'm capable. I know what I'm doing. I've been in this business most of my adult life. And I started Notary to Pro. And my goal was to raise the bar in this industry. And I think we've done it. It's been my daughter, Barbara, and I, and we've made a lot of changes in a lot of people's lives. I think we're known as probably the most error-free trainer, our graduates are. And so we've been in business since 2009. And there's a couple of people here that are my graduates, including Phyllis, who I'm so proud of, and Beth, and that's all. And by the way, Beth, I would really prefer, considering my age at 78, I would really prefer more mature audience.
Oh,
Older.
we are mature. We just look great. Okay, thank you, Carol. And Ronnie, your introduction, please. And I think you have some wins that you might want to report today as well.
So yeah, I've had a really great day today. So my name is Ronnie Mickle. I'm the owner of Unlimited Ink Notary Signing Agency. I came into the mix of working with Miss Carol and Miss Phyllis and Miss Beth a couple of years ago. At my signing agency, I really needed those error-free notaries to drive us to where we are today. I reached out to Miss Carol. She was kind enough to help us get our core team retrained through Notary to Pro so we could get everyone on the same page. Flash forward years later, Unlimited Ink is now $1 million signing agency. And today was actually our most successful day. We onboarded 2 clients who actually have 300 to 400 orders a month. One is in Arizona, one is in Jacksonville, Florida. So we've increased our order load by 800 orders in one day. And sure enough, right before the end of the workday today, I got an email from one of our existing Arizona clients that actually wants to go not only use us for nationwide business, but they're going to use us for every office that they have throughout the country. So that's a success story, and I owe that all to Notary to Pro. I would not be here actually doing anything that I do if it wasn't for Notary to Pro, because it gave me that launching pad. I also own a company called NotaryStars.com where I work as a friendly partnership. We're not partners on paper, but we actually, work together to train notaries. At Notary Stars, we built a directory very similar to 123 Notary Rotary, but without all the junk on it. So we actually offer live training on the site as well. So once you graduate Notary to Pro, you can come to us and we do extended training live, where Miss Beth Hathoot spends 3 of her nights, and we have Eden Chase who does 1 of her days, and a general mentorship with me every week. And we love when the Notary to Pro graduates come over to us for additional training. We don't have a certification at Notary Stars. I don't call us a certification course. I actually call us a continuing education course because we want to be there for the notaries. And we also offer notary support no matter who you're working with. We have a phone support line for you to call 7 to 11. So that's our 2 things. But thank you for pointing out that today, Ms. Hathoot. I usually don't talk about those sorts of things, but it was a really great day today. The biggest day I've ever had as a signing agency bringing on clients.
Oh, Ronnie, I wish I could give you a hug.
Yep, that's pretty awesome. pretty awesome.
We'll get
All
our
right.
hug. We'll get our hug in as soon as I can get over to Texas.
Virtual.
Yes, we'll have a virtual hug and then we'll get over to Texas.
I'll call you back.
Okay, so for our first topic of the day, we're going to go through a quick notary hack, and this is definitely not just for the older notary. And this could be for someone who's just starting out or someone who already does a number of signings a day, and this is just to help keep you organized. Now, when you're younger, you're kind of flighty maybe and have trouble keeping your schedule. When you're older, you can know something 1 minute and forget it the next. So this is just something to help you stay on track with your schedule every day. So we know that when these orders come in, they come in a variety of different ways: email, phone call, text, or a specific app for the company that we're doing business with. So 4 different avenues, that's 4, right? There we go. 4 different avenues of receiving an order for your day. And sometimes we're doing that when we're driving. I am not advocating to look at your phone while you're driving. I'm just saying, sometimes we're in our car and those orders come in. When you are distracted and need to be able to accept an order or a potential order when it comes in, and you're doing something else, I don't know, driving, maybe you're at the signing table, we need a way to kind of funnel that information and at least put a little flag on it so we can get back to it and actually do something with it. So what I do, I use a calendar on my phone, but if we get an order that comes in, and it doesn't make any difference whether you're sitting at your desk or in your car, when you get an order coming in over your phone, by the time you flip back to your phone calendar to look to see if you're available for that time slot, and you go back to that order, it's already gone. You know, these things just go like wildfire when they come over. So you don't really have that opportunity to check an electronic calendar. But hey, if you've got a nice big paper calendar like this, it's easy to flip through it and say, yep, I got it. I can do that one, okay? And also in your car, leave this on the passenger seat of your car so that you're not having to look at something for more than just a second to see if you've got an open time slot to take that order. So when you do that, you're just going to make a quick little mark or circle the time. That's all you have to do to remind you there's something in that spot until you have a minute to get back to it and can fill in the information. So once you get stopped or you're back at your desk, or you can focus your attention to go into that email or that app on your computer, you're going to print that order. I encourage everybody to print out their orders. Now you've got something you can fill in on your paper calendar. You can add it to your electronic calendar, and that paper order that you printed out, you're going to take notes on it. Did you try to call them? Did you contact them? Did you confirm the order? All those things. But this little guy, the order, can then go into your credenza organizer. Do you guys know what this is? This is a 1 through 31 organizer, okay? So when you print out that order, you're going to put it in the particular day that it goes in this organizer. This is going to stay open somewhere in your office to the day that you're working on or the next day, and all your orders will be right there. So if you forget to write it down on your book, if you don't get it on your calendar in your phone, then you've got your trifecta fail-safe. You've got your order printed out and ready on the day that you're supposed to be doing it. There should be no reason that you get disorganized and can't remember what's going on for your calendar for that day. Carol, if your computer crashes, you got paper. I'm a big believer in that trifecta, fail safe, just making sure that you've got all your ducks in a row. And the other thing that I do is I print a Google Calendar and I attach it to the back of my order so that when I'm in my car, I take that order with me to my signing. And if I lose reception on my Google Maps, or if I'm using Garmin or anything else, I've got a map. I can find it without it. All righty, guys. That's my little tip. All righty. We are going to start right in to our main topic, and that's going to start with Miss Phyllis Traylor.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Those were some good tips. Yeah, because you never know when you're going to need a backup. Because, hey, computers do fail us sometimes.
They do.
Okay, so today I am going to be talking about a book that I recommend that all my students purchase, that I feel like every notary that's doing notary work should have this book in their notary library. And it's a book by Professor Clausen called Notary Best Practices, Expert's Guide to Notarization of Documents. I'm just going to give a quick review about Professor Michael Clausen, Clausen is pronounced Clausen, Professor Michael Clausen, who is the author of this book. Professor Clausen has over 40 years in the legal profession. He had a long career as a professor of law at the John Marshall Law School in Chicago. He's a highly sought after notarial scholar, consultant, author, and legal expert. He also works closely with the National Notary Association. He has been a constant speaker at the annual National Notary Association conference. And I had the pleasure of sharing the stage with Professor Clausen at the 2019 Texas Secretary of State Notary Public Conference. So he is an expert on notary law. This is something that he has studied, written about over the years. So his book is, if you've been a notary for any amount of time, you know that every state has laws, has their notary laws. All of our states are a little bit different, but there's a lot of situations that you're going to come across that aren't covered by your notary law. So there's a lot of gray areas. So with Professor Clausen's book, it covers some of those gray areas without trying to override any of your state laws. So it's just a really handy tool to have. And what I'm going to talk about today is chapter 17 of his book, because chapter 17 covers the notary journal. And we all know, or we should know, how important that notary journal is. And when Professor Clausen talks about his book, he has mentioned on several occasions that chapter 17 of his book is the most important chapter. And it's also the longest chapter in his book. So he goes over a lot of information in chapter 17. And what he does is he just makes great suggestions about how we should maintain our notary log. Now, as I said before, every state has different notary laws. So his book is not encouraging you to follow exactly what he says and forget all about your notary laws, because every suggestion that he makes, he also prefaces it with, if not prohibited by law, meaning if this is not prohibited in your state by law, then this is a best practice to use. So I'm just going to talk about one part of chapter 17, because chapter 17, like I said, is the longest chapter in the book. It's called the Notary Journal Records. I'm not going to go over the entire chapter. I just picked out one section of that chapter that I thought was really important. And that was the section where he talks about recording information in the Notary Journal. And he suggests, Professor Clausen suggests that the notary should record no fewer than 13 informational items in the journal entry for each document notarization, including the present signature of the document signer. Now, again, these are just best practices. These do not override what your laws say for your particular state, but these are best practices. So, and I'm just going to go through those recommended informational items right quick. And I also want to add that each item that he listed as a recommended item, he also had a case illustration associated with most of those items and also additional notary tips. So it's just some great information in that book. So the first one he suggests is that you enter the present date and time of the start and end of the notarization. Now, I thought that was a great idea because in the past, all I would enter was just the date. But he also goes further and said, you know what? Enter the time you start and the time you end. Because what you're doing when you're using the journal and recording that information, you're making a record of the whole transaction of what transpired during that notarization. The second one is the location of the notarial ceremony, includes the street address, city, county, or state where the notarization is performed. And also thought this was a great idea because in the past, I would just enter the information on the individual's driver's license. But I never thought that, you know what, it's a good idea also to enter where did this notarization take place. Even though it's going to be on the notarial certificate, you have the venue area, but you don't have an address, especially if you you do you don't do the notarization at that person's home, you might do it at a hospital or at the work. So it's a good idea to add the address. The next one he talks about is adding the type of document and the number of pages of the document. Again, another one I hadn't done. I would always add the type of document because that's what the journal would ask for, but I never thought to add the number of pages. And his reasoning for this is that by adding the type of document and the number of pages, it helps prevent the substitution of a different document or the addition or removal of pages after notarization, which is a great idea. The next one he mentions is adding the type of notarization, which is usually something that's required by the journal, whether it's going to be an acknowledgement or a jurat. The next one is the document signer's name and contact information. Now, remember earlier I said, if your state law allows this. Now for Texas, we wouldn't be able to enter their contact information. We wouldn't be able to enter a phone number or an email address as he suggests in his book, but some states might allow that. The next one is a method of document signer identification. And most notary journals ask for that anyway.
Hey, Carol.
I got 2 minutes. I'm on prime time.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Phyllis, I just muted everybody, and then you'll just have to unmute yourself again. I apologize for that.
Okay. Unmuted again. So where did I stop at? Let's see, documents, type of notarizations. Okay, so the type of notarizations, acknowledgements or jurat, those are included in most notary journals anyway. Document signer's name and contact information, I talked about that. Method of document signer identification, we always have to, depending on your state, I know in Texas, we have to put in our journal how we identify the signer. Professor Clausen also suggests that if we do an jurat and we administer the oath like we are supposed to, we should also annotate in our journal that the oath or affirmation was administered. And that's really a good point. I think that that's important because a lot of times when I have notarized signatures where using a jurat, I've had signers tell me when I administer an oath, I've had signers tell me that that's the first time they were ever administered an oath. So, administer the oath and then also add that information to your notary journal.
Hopefully, if we all keep doing that like we're supposed to, eventually we'll stop hearing that, right?
Yes, exactly, Beth. The next one is the signer's willingness assessment, which I never thought about doing. So you can ask, it is our responsibility to make sure to the best of our ability that the signer is signing a document of their own free will. But we should also make a note that we made it a point to make sure that the signer was signing of their own free will. So that can be annotated in your journal. He also suggests that the signer's mental competence assessment be annotated in the journal. So if, we're going to ask questions to make sure that the signer understands what they're signing, we ask questions to make sure that they comprehend what's going on, that they are capable of making a decision. While we're not doctors, we still have an obligation to make sure that they have the capacity to some extent to sign. So if we do these things on a regular basis, they should be annotated in our journal. Another item he listed was the signer's signature. And I think this is very important because not all states require a signer's signature in a journal. Texas doesn't require a signer's signature, but I've always asked the signer to sign my journal. I never tell the signer they have to. I just, ask them to please sign my journal. So, and that just helps validate what you did at the time. And it also helps validate the fact that the signer did personally appear before you if you get that signer's signature. He also suggests entering a notary fee or no fee into your journal, and then adding any additional or other information. So those are just some of the things that he talks about in his book. Like I said, there's a lot of great information in there. I'll put in the chat area how you can order his book. I think the only place that you can purchase the book right now is at the National Notary Association.
I think somebody's got a link for Amazon for that as well.
I actually just was about to chime in on that. I put that in there, but I actually don't believe it's the same person. So if you see that link in the chat, ignore that, and Miss Phyllis will actually post.
Yeah, I'll put the link because they don't sell it at Amazon anymore.
Okay.
Okay. And that is my information on Professor Clausen's book.
You did have one question in the chat, and it might spark some other questions about journals for you, Phyllis. One said, aren't we supposed to not have them sign if they're not aware?
If they're not aware.
Right. When you were talking about a awareness assessment, you were referencing more to the fact that if there's ever any question, your notary journal would note whether they are alert and aware. But the question is, aren't we supposed to not have them sign if they aren't aware?
Oh, no, if they're not aware, you're not going to have them sign. You're not going to have them sign nothing. You're going to stop right there. That's the purpose of determining whether or not they're aware. If you determine they are not aware, then you stop. You don't even move forward. You just
and
let
you make
them
those
know.
notations in your journal as well.
Yeah,
right?
you just say this is not something, we're not going to be able to move forward with this notarization.
So you have another question from Olivia Martinez, and she says, when we have them sign, sometimes Hispanics print, or we should say just maybe immigrants or people who are don't have English as their first language, they'll learn to print. They may not learn to write in cursive. But it says, oh, by the way, millennials too. Does it matter if their signature, quote unquote, is one that they signed on the document? As long as it's the same thing, it doesn't matter, does it?
I mean, to me, it doesn't matter as long as they sign it, because even, like I said, in Texas, we're not even required to have a signature in our journal. So again, these aren't laws, these are best practices. So, kind of take it, think about, okay, if I want to do this, I want to do it right. Let's practice doing it in the most professional manner possible. But these are not laws. Okay.
Yeah, and the whole idea of the journal, by the way, guys, is to cover your behind. If you're ever called into court, that's your memory. I've been into court 3 times, and if I didn't have a journal, I didn't have a journal entry. So I'm going, I don't know what happened here. Turns out it was a forgery. Someone stole my notary identification. But the idea is normally these questions don't ever come to light for years after a notarization. There is no way you're going to know anything about what took place. So the more information you can have in your journal, the better off you are. That's your memory. That's your backup.
And it's okay to use more than one line. You don't get any credit for having a nice, neat journal. Put as much information in there as you can, because like Beth said, it's to cover you.
Yeah. You have another question.
One quick story. I just want to share one quick story about, so in Washington, from what I know, they up until a certain point, they didn't have to have a journal. And one of our notaries that we use regularly actually made her own journal, and she made it based on what she thought was the strictest state for journals. And I don't know what that was, probably California, but she even took fingerprints for her signings. And she was called into question. And if it wasn't for her journal, she wouldn't be a notary now, because she was accused of forging documents for signers in a divorce case. Because in that particular case, the female signer tried to say that she didn't sign anything on the paperwork. Turns out she did. And it was because she had those fingerprints and signatures and recorded documents that case closed.
Yeah, I have a particular journal that I use that I get a signature the way they signed on their ID. And then sometimes their signature on the documents might be different, might include their full middle name instead of just an initial, or they've got a scribble signature on their ID, but they're required to do first, middle, last on their documents, and they will, some are still illegible, but some will actually be able to write out their first, middle, and last name, and that signature is wholly different than what's on their ID. So I get both signatures.
And I just want to quickly say too that you have to be careful. Make sure that you know your notary laws for your state, because in Texas it is against the law to take a thumbprint in your journal. It is against the law. Even though journals come, all the journals you'll see will have a space for a thumbprint. It's against the law in Texas to do it. So it's so important to know your laws.
Yeah, California says you can do it, but you absolutely have to do it on real estate documents, right? So, all right, let's see what we got in the chat for you, Miss Phyllis. They want to know if you have to spell out the type of type of certificate that you're, that's not what this says. Let me read this. Would you have to spell it all out, or could you use an abbreviation in your journal such as OA to stand for oath administered?
As long as you understand what you're abbreviating, so that you'll be able to, if your notarization is challenged in court, you're going to have to be the one to be able to understand what you abbreviated. So don't use an abbreviation that you're not going to remember what it's for. Make sure it's something that's going to help jog your memory.
And there's another one in here that I'd like to address. It says if someone has limited mobility, can you help them sign by putting their hand where they need to sign? Wait a minute, and it's moving. Putting their hand where they need to sign. I can't find it. Oh, here it is. Or would it be more feasible to have someone else sign on their behalf? Well, if you're talking about, well, first let me just say that most state laws, and again, you have to check with your state laws, you have to be able to sign your name unassisted. So if you're even touching their hand or helping them move their pen, that's considered assisting them. So that's a no-no. In Arizona, that's a no-no. California, that's a no-no. I know a lot of our side of the coast laws, but not so much on the other side. The other thing is suggesting to have someone else sign on their behalf. If it's a loan package, that should have been addressed ahead of your getting there. In other words, if somebody has a power of attorney where they can sign for someone, that has to be approved by the lender and the title company before you can do that. So if you're in a loan signing and the documents aren't drawn with the power of attorney, you can't just do that. That has to be approved and set up that way in advance. If it's general notary work and someone can't sign unassisted and brother-in-law steps up and says, I have power of attorney, I can do this, it's the notary's duty to at least confirm that they hold that power before they allow that to take place. So you're gonna have to see the power of attorney and make some kind of judgment there.
I do need to chime in on this because I don't want to steer people in the wrong direction on loan signings. So for a title agency, you are 99.9% not going to be sent to a power of attorney signing unless they've seen the power of attorney
Exactly.
on title. However, if you arrive at a signing and there's no power of attorney language on the documents, do not make the executive decision to continue with that signing until you've talked to your title agency or a signing party. Most of the time, those documents must have the power of attorney or attorney in fact language on the documents to proceed. Sometimes they'll have you have the signer write it in, initial and sign that way above, which I think is a lot of work for a notary. So when you're doing a loan signing, and then if it does have power of attorney and they have put that in place and title has that on file, you do not have to see it in the state of Arizona. You need to know your state laws, but in Arizona, it's actually you do not have to see the power of attorney if someone tells you that they have power of attorney here.
Oh.
So I just want to make that clear on loan signings. You wouldn't be there unless title was aware of it.
Exactly.
And I'd like to.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Phyllis.
And I'd just like to piggyback on that too, because in Texas, if somebody, say for instance, you go to somebody and they are to notarize their signature and they are unable to sign, as the question stated, or they need assistance, you can't give assistance in Texas. And nobody can sign unless they have a power of attorney. However, the notary can ask the signer, do you want me to sign your name for you? If the the signer gives the notary permission, then the notary can sign that person's name, but there has to be a disinterested witness there to witness that. And then there has to be a statement under that signature stating that the witness gave permission to the notary to sign, and then a reference to the state law that authorizes that.
Yeah, is that called signature by proxy?
No.
What is that?
It's just the signer is given the notary authorization to sign. And then, like I said, there's a special statement that has to go under there, referencing the law that gives them permission to do that. And also the witness's name has to be included in that statement under that signature.
Okay, and there are other situations where you could use signature by mark as well in a few states. Arizona's one, but again, not on a loan signing package unless prior authorizations been given by lender or title. So Carol, if you want to unmute, because there's a question in the chat window that has to do with your topic for today. And that's on recording fees in your journal.
Okay, and there was a couple of things I wanted to add. And that was great, Phyllis, the information. One of the things that I encourage my students to do is to always issue the oath at the beginning if there's affidavits in the file. And when you're putting it into your journal, it is so important, no matter where you put it, be consistent. If you are called into court, and they ask you if you issued an oath, you can show a record in your journal that I always issue the oath in certain circumstances. And here you can look through my whole journal and you're going to see in the same spot all the time, a big O, whatever you want to do. But it's very important that you do it. And, you know, we are mature people. But even when you're young, you can't remember everything. I can't remember what I did yesterday for the most part. But when, you know, when you're looking at a journal and you've got a judge next to you and people looking at you, you aren't going to remember the information unless you keep a meticulous record in that journal. And even the people who don't have states that require them, I tell my students, you've got to have a journal. It's vital. It could really save you one of these days. But on the notary, on the notary fees, I just wanted to add something there. When you're putting your notary fees in, federal, at least if this is federal law, that you don't have to pay the income tax or the self-employment tax on your notary fees themselves. So for instance, in, what is it in Arizona now, $10? Is it $10 a signature? Okay, so let's say you do get $100 from the signing service and you do 3 notarizations, that's $30. So when you go to pay your taxes, you're only going to pay on 70 because they're going to deduct the notary fees. So when you put notary fees in your journal, don't put the $100. You've got to keep that in separate records. If you use like Notary Assist or something like that, it's great for this. And then you just put the $30 as the fee in the journal. So you keep track of what is going to be deductible. Yes, were you going to say something?
No, you froze for a moment. I don't know if that was me or you, but you froze on the screen for a moment. I thought we were going to lose you.
Even though we've moved and even though we've just done everything we can do, including getting me my own modem, I just can't seem to get past it. But we've been in the middle of storms. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Something else. But anyway, and one other thing I just wanted to mention too, I am not a huge fan of buying things from NNA all the time, but I do want to tell you the difference between buying your E&O insurance from the NNA and most other companies. With the NNA, if you're a notary for 15 years and now you've given up your commission, but 5 years after your commission has lapsed and something comes up that's a problem, the NNA E&O insurance will still cover you, and that's the only producer or the only seller that I know of that does that. So I'm kind of recommending to my graduates to purchase their E&O insurance from the NNA now.
All righty. Let's see. You have a question. What would you record if notary fees is greater than the fee you received from the signing service?
You can't. You have to limit it. You can't deduct more than what you've been paid.
So you're still claiming $100 as income, notary income. But in your journal, you're only recording the amount per notarization or per signature, however your state figures that, for each one that you do for that. And if it's only 5, you're only going to record $50. But $100 total income, $50 of it is exempt from unemployment tax.
Right. So what you have when you turn it over to your tax accountant, if you do it, my husband does ours, then they know what they're doing. They can deduct whatever fees you've been paying that are actually notary fees.
Okay. Any other quick journal questions here, guys? We're going to let Carol move on to her next topic if we're good.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead.
And Phyllis, you and I came up with kind of the same thing, but I wanted to suggest something that I tell my graduates. And that is when you're going to a signing, what I used to do is I used to print out directions and I would staple them so that we had 2 face-ups. I would staple them to my confirmation sheet and put them next to me in the car. Because if you didn't have GPS, or if for some reason it didn't work, which I've had happen, you have directions and you got all the information, the phone numbers and address and everything right there next to you. And that works. But I never thought about putting it in my calendar, but I couldn't find it in my calendar, probably. Okay. One of the things I wanted to talk about was passwords. I got to be honest with you guys. There is not, I won't even say a week. There's not 3 days that go past that I am not pulling out my hair, yelling and crying out loud. The girls will tell you over passwords. I don't know how many of you go through this, but they are the bane of my life. You know, most of us on this, I think we didn't see a cell phone until the ones that were that big. I was so proud of it. It was bigger than the household. But you know, we're from the days of the party line and all that. So it's those things that just drive me out of my mind. Well, my son-in-law gave me a really, really good tip, and I'm going to share. He's a forensic specialist, works for a large company, has a huge bunch of people that work under him. Take one word, okay? And that's always going to be your password, except like if you're going into, let's say, Facebook, you're going to do face and that word, whatever word it is. Let's say it's maintain. Okay, you're going to do a capital M, an @ sign for the A, an exclamation for the I, a big N, a big T, a little @ sign, exclamation, little N. So you've got everything, and maybe a number. Throw in a regular number, so you know it's always going to be the number 7 or the number 8 at the end. So when it really, really helps. And you can do whatever you just abbreviate your your main password and some number, and it'll get you through everything. And I've done it like on my bank accounts, and I've gotten superior. Not, no, you need to do something else.
I do this, Miss Carol, and I have to tell you though, I had to limit myself to 3 to 5 passwords that I will always remember on the variation of that word, because I got a little cray-cray with it along the way, and I wound up having, 10 or 15, and that didn't work for me either. So when you're doing that, I suggest write down somewhere those 3 to 5 passwords. And, I intentionally make one, 6, 8, and I think 12 for my 3. So that I always know what those passwords are, and I can check those 3 passwords, so that I don't have to go through 15 of them. Because after you get about 5 or 6 of them, you start getting frustrated.
Want to see mine?
No,
3 pages.
No,
don't show your passwords.
no,
Okay.
no.
Okay, we're now transferring a lot of money from Carol Ray to everyone on the call.
She just gave us her bank account password. I have essentially the same base password for all of my business accounts, all of my companies that I work for to get into their apps or their websites. They all have the same freaking password. It's all the same, except for just a little bit different on the front for the company that it is, or on the back end. So I always know how to get into those, unless they tell me, hey, your password's expired, you need to change it. And then I go, oh,
Yeah,
no.
then you gotta, yeah, that's a mess. I hope nobody freezes their computer. Just
That's right, we're gonna freeze frame and read your passwords, Carol. It's gonna be on the recording.
And did you want me to talk about our records?
Sure, if you want to.
Yeah, I like it. This is another thing now. I don't know how many of our graduates are out there, but we have a special with this company. But scanning documents, they can be an absolute nightmare. I had one of my graduates call me, it's been a while, a month or so ago, and absolutely in tears. He had done a signing. They needed those documents to be scanned over. And she just she couldn't send it. The email accounts that she had, every single one of them were too large. She had to break them up into package after package, and just called me in tears. And we got into this company. It's called ourrecords.com. And it is a way of keeping track of your things. You can upload them, and the companies do put in there, occasionally hire you from it. But the main thing is that this is something that is great for being able to send scan backs encrypted. If the companies that you're sending them back to don't have their own portal for sending documents back encrypted, this is great, and it handles huge files. Now the yearly fee is $120. If you're a Notary to Pro graduate, you get it for $60. And the way you do it is you upload your file to the company, through Our Records, and you can type in your email address, and you can type in the email address of the receiver, the recipient of the documents. And it's just a matter of, you might have, if it's really like a 200 or 300 page, you might have to break it in half, but basically it holds huge packages. You load it up and you send it. It'll send you a copy, so you've got a copy to keep, which I always recommend. Keep a copy of the documents for at least a month after you've done the signing. And then the recipient gets an email that says you have an email from so-and-so, and they open it up. You can send a password with it, and they have to use the password, or they don't have to. And they open it up, it's encrypted, it's there, it's ready to print, and you're off the hook, and you're done with it. It's a great company, and we've never had it fail. I've been using it for probably 5 or 6 years now, and I love it. So I just thought, in case you don't know anything about it, you might want to look into it, keep you from tearing your hair out. And I think that's all I have to say. So good night.
Carol, somebody had a comment in here that said, instead of scanning, could you use your phone to snap a photo and then email it to those via WhatsApp? Do you know what that is?
Nope.
Here's the initial problem that I have with that. I don't know what WhatsApp is, but the fact that you're taking a picture of a document with your phone, to me is a
You don't
problem,
want it there.
because
Yeah, you don't want it there.
yeah, anything that's on your phone could be accidentally uploaded to the cloud, or someone could get a hold of it otherwise. How long are you keeping it on your phone? Is it getting backed up with the rest of your phone data and stored on Verizon's backup server? Yeah, probably not a really
Well,
good
that's why
idea.
we don't use phones to take pictures of IDs. We don't do that anymore. You keep this, the phones are not like they used to be, and they retain so much information. You're really leaving yourself up to liability if you take anything. That's why this is so great, because you don't have it anywhere. And I keep flash drives. By the way, another thing, and that's something else I do in my training, is that when you download documents, when you first get your documents, put them on a flash drive. Never keep the flash drive plugged into your computer. And if you do get that copy back to you, the signed copies, keep them on the flash drive and keep them off of your computer.
Okay, another question about our record says, does that $60 renew at that price annually, or is it only for a limited time?
No, they've been giving our graduates that for several years now.
So you can renew at the graduates discount?
Mhm.
Okay.
I just want to point out something about the phones as well. Just to give you an idea of how powerful your phone actually is, believe it or not, your iPhone or your Samsung smartphones are more powerful than the computers that flew us to the moon for the first time. So that should give you a really good analogy of how much power is located in that phone. If we can get to the moon and back, you can send someone's ID around the world instantly.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to you, Mr. Mickle. Your topic for the day, ID copies.
Yes. So one thing that I advise you is when you're confirming your appointment, most companies want a copy of the IDs and they place that onto the notary. Unlimited Ink is one of them. What we advise the notaries to do is when you're confirming your appointment, ask the signers if they will be able to have a copy of their ID. Everyone knows from Unlimited Ink to Notary Stars how big of a fan I am if you don't want to do that process for them to have a copy. And you need to tell them it needs to be a good copy of the ID. If you're not a fan of that, then I highly recommend having a scanning device that you can scan to get it onto the portal. If you're in a pinch, Signing Order and SnapDocs, if you're working through these platforms, if you go to your order and you click on the upload button for scanbacks, and do this through your phone, you click on the order to upload your scanbacks. Don't complete them, especially like on Signing Order, because then you'll lock yourself out. You can continue to add files later, but what our notaries do is when they get there and they don't have a copy of their ID, they go to their order on their phone, they go to Documents, then they click on Upload, and it will say take a photo or choose from library. If you choose take a photo, it will bypass saving the photo to your phone and only upload it to the secure portal. And it works the same way on SnapDocs. So if you're not aware of that, that's not a notary hack. It's something that you just may not be aware of, and I wanted to kind of bring that to the attention. Now, in certain cases, if they have a military ID, I always make this disclaimer because I don't feel like enough notaries know this. You are in no way allowed to take a photo of a military ID. It's illegal. You can get in trouble for it. It says on the ID not to be photographed, I believe. But if you don't know, you are not allowed to take a copy of a military ID.
Not even the veteran.
Yeah.
Retired, no.
Not allowed to be taken a photograph of. So
So Phyllis, what title statute is that says, hey, you can't copy a military photo ID unless it's for medical or military use, right? Oh, can't hear you.
He's frozen.
Okay.
No, he's looking.
I did all of this just to say I don't know.
Okay. So I need to go back here for just a minute. In the chat box, Olivia says, I submitted 2 questions to the email prior to this. Will they be answered, Beth? I didn't see those emails, Olivia. So if you want to unmute and ask that question really quickly, then we can move on.
I'm going to find Olivia to be able to
Unmute her.
Yeah. I'm coming, Miss Olivia. Don't run. There we go. I found you.
Okay. I was trying to look real quick at it. Whenever, let's see. Well, okay. Sometimes I see the sworn to, and then we notarize it, and then underneath it is acknowledgement. This is Texas. Acknowledgement, and they're on the same paper. I've seen it done different ways because it does happen different ways. But now I stamp both. But I was looking back at something and I noticed that it doesn't stamp both. And maybe Ronnie can answer this too. Do you stamp both, or is one stamp on the bottom, I mean, near the second one acceptable?
Okay, I got a little lost with listening to that. So if you could repeat that one time, I'm going to give it, put it all together.
Okay.
Great.
One of the things is it says sworn and subscribe to me, the jurat in Texas. And then right underneath that, it has a little thing for, I acknowledge, you know, you're doing both on the same paper.
Mm-hmm.
Do you put your notary stamp on both, or just near the acknowledgement? Because that's usually the end, the bottom of the page. That, which is proper.
So this actually came up into the chat earlier, Ms. Hatfood, and this would be a great question. We're hoping to make a video on this one day. So it sounds like that they have a hybrid notarization there.
Or they have 2 separate certificates.
Two separate certificates on the same paper.
If it's 2 separate certificates on the same document, you notarize both.
Stamp
They want both. What they essentially want is a hybrid notarization, but there's too many states that don't allow that. So a lot of title companies have taken to splitting those and putting both on the same document. You're going to notarize both.
Because sometimes there's 3 and 4 on the same page. Another question I had, okay, about whenever you're a RON and a regular notary, is there an advantage to being commissioned in other states? Maybe for RON, but the other way, as a LSA?
Question.
I couldn't, you went in and out. I couldn't hear that. No.
She's asking if there's an advantage of being a notary in multiple states. And for Ron, as far as I know for Ron, let's answer that part of the question first. As far as I know for Ron, I don't know if you can have your Ron in multiple states. Most states, I believe, are still getting off the ground with it. And if they are, I don't know about it. And if anybody else on the panel does.
Well, if you're a RON, if you're doing a RON notarization, like say for instance, you're in Texas, you're Texas notary, you also have your Texas online notarization. If you're a Texas online notary, you have to be physically in the state of Texas to complete the notarization. You can't fly to Florida and do a online notarization because you're no longer in the state of Texas. Because you have to complete that notarial certificate. That notarial certificate is going to say, where were you when you completed that notarization? It has to be done in Texas.
And then
She's asking whether you can have dual commission. I do have a lot of students who have dual commissions.
But
They're close to the border.
Notarizations.
Well, I think she was wondering too, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought she was asking if it's possible to.
It's a 2-part question. One was about Ron, one was about a regular notary commission.
Yeah, and I have a lot of students who have dual commissions. In fact, in Pennsylvania and Washington, DC and Virginia, I think I have a couple who have actually triple.
So going back to the original answer, I don't believe that, I don't know if they'll let you have multiple RON certifications, because I mean, that, it doesn't make sense to me, because you can notarize for anyone outside of the state and in the state, anywhere in the world, as long as they can pass that verification. For regular notary work, as a loan signing agent, if you're in a tri-state area or on the border of a state where you can go back and forth and they allow it, yes, but you want to check those state laws, and then some of them you have to petition to do it. Some of them you have to work in a certain sector. So real estate might be one of those sectors. And then if you are, just so everyone knows, if you are a dually commissioned notary, please make sure you let SnapDocs and Signing Order know, because they actually have a block that says, I only want to see notaries from this state now. And so unless you have it in there, you're not going to hear or see orders across the border. So you have invested all that time and energy into not getting it. It actually gives you a little symbol and a seal to show that you're commissioned in 2 states. So make sure, if you are, do I think there's benefit to it? I love our notaries that are on the border, because usually it's hard to get notaries on a border of a state, because let's face it, all state capitals and busy cities are usually located right inside the state, you know, really into the state. So you guys that are on the borders of states, if you can get those dual commissions and run back and forth and it's not killing you to do so, get it and make it work for you, because you're going to increase your business.
I only need to check with the Secretary of States or whatever states they are able. Can I point out something that's in the chat window? This is really important. There's somebody posted, Jennifer Schmidt posted to everybody, watch for news regarding national use of RON. And she talks about a bill, and there is a link there. And if everybody would go on there after we get done and take a look at that link, there's something going on. I don't want to get into it, but there's something going on that everybody needs to know.
Okay.
You've got another question in the chat, and it says, and this could be for any of the 3 of you, says, I've seen driver's licenses that have written on it not to be used for federal identification. So as notaries, we're only allowed to take federal IDs or non-US IDs with visa certifications with it. So if that's all they have, can they use that?
If it says not for federal identification, to my understanding in Arizona, all of our IDs say that, unless we get that special star put on it. So we have to have 2 IDs, our travel ID and our state ID. You can use the state ID as a identification purposes, because it is a state ID. And in Arizona, now in other states, if you're not allowed to take that, you might need your passport or accompanying ID or a credible witness, which is hard to do in a lot of states. But in Arizona, yes, you can. I'd love to hear from Ms. Carol and Phyllis on other states, because other states don't have this stamped on their.
In Texas, you can use, as long as it's a government, federal, or a state. As long in the statute said, as long as it's a government issued ID. And so whether it be federal, local, whatever, you know, they have to have the, it has to have a photo, a signature, and one more thing, and why I can't think of it.
Description.
Height and body weight requirements are part of ours.
It has to have the description.
So when she says she's seen driver's license not to be used for federal identification, that's the ones that are not the real ID or the travel ID. So those you can't use to go into federal buildings. They won't take them, but we can use them because they're a government issued identification. So
I recently had, if I could share a story with everybody, we went down to get our IDs because we came from California to Arizona, and we had to go through the DMV here, and it's a hassle, but to get the real IDs. And I know that some of you know this, but my husband and I have been married for 58 years. I I had a driver's license from Arizona, but they wanted my marriage certificate to prove that my name was not what it was before and it was now Ray. The problem was that our marriage certificate, we didn't know this until we started looking for it, has never been filed. We're not married.
Not recorded.
But I had to go through to get a real, they had to take the application that we did for our marriage license to identify me so I could get my real ID. I still don't know if we're officially married. They never filed our
certificate for all those years, huh?
All these years. I told my kids what they were.
Okay, so in the chat, Phyllis, some good attendee here is telling us that military ID statute that says you cannot photocopy a military ID is Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Part 1, Chapter 33, Section 701. And it says, nope, you can't do it unless you're part of the military or for military purposes or for medical purposes. Everybody else, you're out of luck.
And I'd like to also point out that person that posted that is one of my Texas Notary patrons.
See, there you go.
Thank you, Christina.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. And okay, somebody tell everybody how to save the chat. We're going to actually go to our guest speaker, Clyde Hefner, here really quickly. He's also he's the creator of the Integrity Journal, and he's also going to talk a little bit about his journal before we finish up here. But somebody tell everybody how to save the chat here so they can catch those links. How do we do that?
There's a file button on here. Oh, you click that file.
Okay, so in the chat window, there's a file icon and button, and then it'll, or the three dots. No, my file button doesn't say save chat. It says Dropbox, Google Drive, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, mine doesn't say. I thought you could save it that way.
Okay. So, Ronnie, since you're offline right now, you can check on that for us. One other question before we go to Clyde. Miss Phyllis Trailer, this is probably for you. Any clarification on credible witness in Texas? Some say a credible witness with proper ID is okay. Some say the notary has to personally know the witness.
The notary does not have to personally know the witness. Credible witness. The credible witness just has to have a current government issued ID and know the signer, and not be named in the document. So they can't benefit. So they have to be a disinterested third party, but they have to know the signer, and they have to physically appear also along with the signer. But the notary does not have to know the credible witness. And the credible witness needs to be entered into that journal. The credible witness information needs to be entered also into your journal.
Okay, hang on here just 1 second. Mr. Clyde Hefner, are you unmuted? You are. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us who you are, and we're actually going to give away one of Clyde's journals today at the end of our webinar. Take it away.
Hi there. Thanks for letting me join you this evening. So I'm Clyde Hefner, and I am a notary here in the state of Missouri. And I am the creator of the Integrity Notary Journal. I'm a full-time notary loan signing agent, and I also do raw notarizations. And I have for you, because it's a journal, it's kind of visual. So I have a presentation, and I'm going to attempt, I'm not allowed to share my screen.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
I cannot help you. Let me see if
I am-
Ronnie can.
I'm working on getting you, I didn't know you were gonna do that, so. give me
Okay,
a second.
sorry.
I'm just looking.
Okay,
So Ms.
Um,
Beth, you're the host of the meeting. You'll need to go to him in the participants window to the right there. Because you were the original host to log in. I'm just a co-host. So
Oh,
you give him co-host ability there.
let me find Mr. Clyde. Okay, I got him.
And then Atlas, if you go over his name,
Mhm.
you'll see a little button that says more, and then you can allow him to be a co-host.
excellent.
Nope. Nope.
Okay, I'm gonna take
I
that.
got it. I got it. I got it.
Okay,
There you go.
there we go.
My
Okay,
second finger
excellent.
wasn't working. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, 1 second here. And oops. Okay, I am now sharing that screen. Do you all see it on yours?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Whoops. There we go. So the story behind the journal is that, so if you take it from the perspective of a new notary coming on, and we're learning everything that we can. And for me, I had this overwhelming sort of whelming fear of I was going to do something wrong. So it was more and more studying, trying to learn more. And at the end of the day, it's what everybody has talked about earlier, and that is the journal is what's going to help me, and it's really my best insurance policy. And the more complete my journal entry is, the less likely I'm going to have actions that would be called against me. I still may end up going into court, or I may have people coming to me because there are irregularities, but having a complete journal and complete journal entry is really going to help me. So as I started to piece it all together, my journey led me, as well as Ms. Taylor pointed out, to Professor Clausen. And I began to document what he was suggesting, what the NNA was suggesting, what ANA was suggesting, and others out there. And I came up with this list. I had a list of 14 points that were recommended. And so the situation was, I'm out, and I've been, at this point in my career, I have gone through several different journals, and I'm trying to apply best practices. And it became really, really frustrating at the end of the day. I was writing all over the place. I didn't feel like the journal was really helping me in many respects. I felt penalized because my writing isn't neat and tidy. It is that type of writing where it gets big. I try to make it clear. It doesn't fit neatly into little boxes, and so what I began to realize was that I probably needed to do something on my own. And so I began the pursuit to put together a journal. And so I used as my foundation these best practices that I had gathered together. And then I also wanted a journal that I felt was ergonomically designed. But now keep in mind, if I'm collecting all and documenting all this information, I wanted it to be done in a way that could be very efficient, because I didn't want to add more time to my sessions with people, and I didn't want them to be frustrated because I was doing this copious amount of journaling. And my biggest pet peeve when I would sit down at people's tables was using a journal, and we've seen these where you open them up and it seems like they're just really big all of a sudden. And now I'm trying to wield it around the table, and I've got documents. You know, I'm in a home, I may be on a TV tray, or I might be at a coffee table, and it just became more and more frustrating, that kind of setup. So I went ahead and created a layout, tried it out, and then actually took it to other notaries. I took it to people who do training, and at the end of the day, put it into a trial to notaries across the United States. And also they do loan closings, or maybe doing work with respect to estate documents and such. And as a result of all that, the Integrity Journal was developed. And so the way it's laid out, the best way to think about it is if you have a book and you open it and then turn it 90 degrees, what you have is an upper page and a lower page. And we're going to be collecting a lot of similar information that you would collect in a typical journal, but now you're changing the way in which you journal. You're actually journaling top to bottom rather than going from left to right all the time. And it's designed for having situations where you're dealing with multiple documents and you might have multiple signers. So it has a comprehensive list of documents, and it also has a visual layout to help prompt some of those best practices and places for you to collect information. For example, if you've given an oath and those kinds of things. The other thing I wanted was a journal that had some water resistance, is the best way I can say that. We've all sat down at different locations, and you put that journal down and you didn't check the table or the piece of furniture that you were at before you put your journal down, and lo and behold, there was something there. And we've all had that sound when you pull it up and it begins to stick. So this journal is it's a paperback, but it is actually treated so that it is water resistant, and you can actually wipe it off there. The other thing that I wanted to make sure was included were sample oaths or affirmations. One of the things that I realized starting out, at least in the state of Missouri, you know, we do jurats, and so I know I'm supposed to administer an oath, but nowhere does it document what that oath really should be, what it should include, what it should be for testimony, what it should be for a witness who is stepping in to identify somebody. So I went through and did some research and created and included in then sample oaths that people could use and amend based on their states. So this is a close-up then of that top page. So you'll see there, you know, you've got the date and the time, and then who is the person? Are they a signer? Are they a witness? How were they identified? And then you'll see there are prompts here around, did they express willingness? Are they mentally alert? And did they indicate an understanding? So now I'm beginning that dialogue with that signer from the moment I come in. I already, by this point in time, when I've asked for their ID, we began to talk about the documents. I already began to understand a little bit about who they are, what do they understand, and now I have specific prompts that I can then follow up specifically to see if this is going to go any farther. And if it doesn't, then I have a large notes section, which is on the lower half, where I can document the types of things that we talked about, why my assessment was that this person I don't believe should be signing, and I'm not willing to do the notarization. Otherwise, I know the typical questions that I ask, and they're there as sort of a quick step for me to take that assessment. The next thing then is, what is the format of that notarization? So here in Missouri, you know, we can do paper, we can do electronic or e-sign, and then we can also do RON. we're required in Missouri to maintain a paper journal as well as an electronic journal, so that our paper journal contains all of our acts in a sequential order. And it's also considered to be a best practice that if you are doing RON, to also include them into the paper journal. Again, it becomes a reference back to what was done and may be contained within the electronic journal. Then what you see in the section here is the list of documents that are there. And then how that works is you basically check off the document that you have, circle the type of notarial certificate, and then you identify who the signer is. So each of the signers have a signer number, and you just circle who is signing that document that you are notarizing their signature. If the document doesn't exist on the pre-published list, in the final column, what you can see then is a place for you to enter those documents. And then again, very similar, identifying what kind of notarial certificate it has. Or if there was no document, but really you were just administering an oath, you can do that here as well. And then you identify who actually did that signing. On the lower part of the journal then, what you see is the signing location, so the address of where that signing took place, who else was in the room. A lot of times when I'm doing estate planning documents, there are going to be family members around. And so I like to document who was in the room at the time that we were actually signing, and then who hired me, and then what the fee was. Large note section in the middle. And then at the lower part is again now relating back to the signers. So how I work this is we'll go in, take care of the ID, we'll have our conversation, we'll talk about the documents. I'll get a sense for, are they competent? Are they willing to sign? Are they doing this of their own free will? And once I have their ID and I feel comfortable with all of that, I literally take my journal and I turn it around, and I then allow them to enter their address where they're currently living. So in Missouri, that's the address we put in. We don't put the address that's on the ID. And then I ask for a phone number, and then I have them sign the journal. And then I can compare the journal signature to the one that's on the ID. And I also take a thumbprint at that time. So if I have a jurat, or I have some of those in the packet, if it's a loan signing, I administer the oath, and then right next to the thumbprint there by the signature, the person who I administered the oath to provides their initials. So now I have a record of, yes, I did administer an oath, and yes, the signer acknowledges that I did administer an oath, and they give their initials saying so. So that is the really quick walkthrough of the journal. More than willing to answer any questions that people may have.
Okay.
Other than
Clyde,
that,
if you could unshare your screen.
Yep.
So I can see the chat window, we'll go there and see what we got for you.
yep.
Clyde, I'm going to ask you the first question. It's Carol,
Okay.
and I'm so proud of you.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you, and I know that it's going like house of fire. But I'm getting a lot of questions from people, and I think somebody asked here, you're working on the California one, right?
I am. And so two things are happening there. So I will say, one, working through the California requirements and having it so that it is efficient, given all the things that they need for each individual document every time, is causing me consternation. That we'll call it that. And the second thing is, I'm actually going to contact the Secretary of State's office. I've had a couple of people contact me about the integrity journal, and they believe that it does meet the compliance. So I'm going to actually ask for a formal review, and we'll go from there as well. So, but I'm going to still continue to work, but it is a difficult one with California's requirements.
Yeah, California is a country in its own, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
I'm an
let's
escapee.
I
see
also
what we
want to
got
say,
here.
I also want to say thank you on your booking page on Amazon, or not booking page, everything's booking to me, but on your link for the purchase page. I
Mhm.
love that you have 2 videos down at the bottom using the journal and overview of the journal. I think that's really awesome when people who sell things on Amazon include that kind of information on the site. So if you are thinking about purchasing it, when you go to that link that we put in there, make sure that you check out those videos as well, so that you can see more details about it.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, and I think the videos are helpful, and so yeah, please, they're there to be watched and make your decisions.
So there was another question in here about your suggestion, and that's probably okay in Missouri, but having the signers actually filling out their address and stuff. Is there any Texas law, Phyllis, that says that someone else can't write in your journal?
No, there's no law that says that they
Okay.
can't, somebody else can't write in your journal.
There's none in Arizona either, except for it does say it needs to be printed. We cannot do any cursive in our journals. We can't use the code writing.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Let's see. I think we can go to our raffle, our giveaway. So Clyde is going to be giving away a journal today. So what we're going to do, anybody who's interested in receiving a free journal from Mr. Clyde Hepner, the Integrity Journal, in the chat window, type your number between 1 and 50. Ready? Go. Oh, you guys are too fast.
Wow.
Doesn't that make you feel good, Clyde?
Yeah. Well, I'm just glad that other people are finding value in it as well, because you know, it eliminated a lot of my frustration. So I'm glad that others find value.
Okay, we have a winner.
Making.
The winner is, drum roll please, Elise Warren. Elise Warren. So Clyde, tell Elise how to contact you to get her free journal.
Okay, Elise, I just put into chat my email address, clyde@mobilenotarykc.com. Just drop me an email there, and we'll go ahead and I'll get your details, your address, and one will be on its way.
Thank you so much, Clyde. And
You're
Elise,
welcome.
congratulations. Good job,
Yes.
guys.
Congratulations.
Wonderful.
And then, of course, it's always available on that Amazon link, right, Clyde?
Yes, definitely. And if anybody has questions about it, any of that, please feel free to reach out to me. More than willing to have conversations. So
Perfect.
thank
All
you.
righty.
Appreciate
So
it.
Ronnie, turn your camera on. Phyllis Trailer, Miss Carol, we're getting at the end of our little program. We're running a little bit overtime. Just need any last thoughts from any of you. You would like to go first? Ronnie?
I just want to tell everybody to be safe and live to be at least as old as I am and enjoy your life.
Perfect. And Phyllis, last thoughts from Miss Phyllis.
I just want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Thank you, Clyde, for sharing that journal. I heard a lot about it, and I'm glad to finally be able to take a look at it. And be sure to tune in next month.
Absolutely. I just want to thank everybody for being here today. Thanks for hanging out with us. We get kind of talky on this thing and try to try to have some conversations with you too, trying to watch that chat, and just want to make a small statement that just as you're moving forward in your careers and your lives, please just remember to reach back and grab somebody else and bring them along with you for the ride. All right.
Ms. Hathoot, I just want to add one little thing too. I really know that myself, Ms. Carol, Ms. Phyllis, and Ms. Beth come together. We have meetings about what we're going to talk about before we bring this out to you. And sometimes we say, let's don't put that in, let's put this in. There is work that goes into this. And, you know, none of us would tell you that we're the be all end all of information. We love to be fact checked as well, you know, politely, of course. We do our best to bring you, you know, on all of our individual businesses that come together to make this happen. We do our best to bring you, you know, the most up-to-date information and valid information that we can find for you guys. And we just want to make sure that when you're listening to other programs and things like that as well, which you should, just make sure that, you know, you fact check us, you fact check everyone, make sure it's compliant for your state, just like the journals, anything that we tell you. We don't want to misguide anyone, and we actually call each other out when we have our meetings saying, hey, we probably should state it this way so it applies to all the notaries tuning in all over the country. So just make sure that you don't use us to be your guiding light, but not your compass. You know, you should be your compass, your Secretary of State, your state laws. I just wanted to close with that because I feel like it's very important for us to make reminders every now and then that we do our best, but we also need your help doing the research after we give you the information.
Good. Well said. Well said.
I concur.
It's
All right,
imperative
guys.
that people know there are rules and regulations in their own state.
Yeah, there are. And we don't know them all for sure. All righty. Get ready to sign off. Wave. Everybody wave bye-bye.
Turn on those cameras and start waving so we can wave to all those who are watching the replay here.
Yeah, and we'll see you next month, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.
Good night.